The butcher's secret, the neighborhood delicatessen, Rossi's Fine Meats, had been a fixture on Maple Street for over 50 years. It wasn't flashy, just a small red brick shop with a striped awning and a faded neon sign that buzzed faintly in the evenings. But it had a reputation for having the freshest cuts of meat in town. The Rossi family had owned it for generations, and though the patriarch, Mr. Lorenzo Rossi, was now an elderly man, he still ran the place with meticulous care. Everyone in the neighborhood shopped there. The steaks were impossibly tender, the sausages perfectly spiced, and the sandwiches so good they felt like a sin. Even skeptics who swore by supermarket convenience found themselves drawn back to Rossi's, unable to resist its savory allure. But something about the shop always felt off. Maybe it was the way Lorenzo's sharp eyes lingered just a second too long on his customers, sizing them up like he was imagining more than just their orders. Or the fact that the meat always seemed plentiful, no matter the season or supply chain disruptions. Rumors swirled. Some said Lorenzo had a secret farm. Others joked that he was smuggling exotic game. No one could explain why, but the deli had a way of sticking in the back of your mind, like a shadow that didn't quite belong. The day Nora went missing was when people started to really talk. She was just 17 with a part-time job delivering sandwiches for Rossi's. Quiet, shy, the kind of girl no one paid much attention to, until she didn't show up for her shift. Her parents were frantic, and the police combed the neighborhood, but there was no trace of her. Her bike was found leaning against the side of the deli, its tires muddy, but that was it. When questioned, Lorenzo shrugged, his demeanor calm but detached. She came in, picked up her deliveries and left. Haven't seen her since. The police accepted his statement. After all, Lorenzo Rossi was practically a local institution. But whispers began to spread. People started noticing little things. The way the smell from the deli seemed stronger after dark, thick and cloying, like meat left too long in the sun. The way Lorenzo began to close the shop earlier than usual, locking the heavy steel door with a loud echoing clang. And the way the sandwiches, which had always been irresistible, seemed different. The flavor was richer, the texture softer, almost melting in your mouth. Lena, a single mom new to the neighborhood, was the first to confront him. "My daughter's been sick," she said one afternoon, her voice sharp and accusing as she stood at the counter. "She threw up after eating your roast beef. I want to know what's in it." Lorenzo's eyes glinted as he leaned forward, his expression calm. "Fresh, high-quality beef," he said evenly. "Nothing more." But Lena wasn't satisfied. That night, long after the shop had closed, she drove back and parked across the street. She watched as the lights in the deli flickered on, and Lorenzo emerged from the back room wearing a stained apron. He carried something large and wrapped in thick, waxy butcher paper to the alley behind the shop. Curiosity turned to dread as Lena crept closer, her heart pounding. She peered around the corner just in time to see Lorenzo hoisting the bundle into a heavy metal freezer. The door creaked as it swung shut, and for a split second, Lena thought she saw a hand, small, pale, and lifeless, slip free from the edge of the wrapping before it disappeared into the darkness. The next morning, Lena went to the police, but without proof, they dismissed her as hysterical. "He's been running that shop for decades," one officer said, shaking his head. "You're imagining things." Frustrated, Lena took matters into her own hands. That night, she returned to the alley, this time armed with a flashlight and bolt cutters. She waited until the lights in the shop went out and the street was quiet before making her move. The freezer was massive, its surface frosted over. Her hands shook as she forced the lock open, the metal giving way with a loud snap. The door creaked open, and a wave of icy air rushed out. Inside, rows of neatly wrapped packages were stacked on metal shelves, each labeled with a date and a single initial. At first glance, it looked ordinary, but as she moved the packages aside, her flashlight caught something that made her stomach lurch, a clump of hair, matted and frozen, poking out from one of the bundles. Lena tore at the packaging, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Inside was a severed arm, the skin bluish and frozen, the fingers curled in a grotesque claw. She stumbled back, dropping the package, her flashlight clattering to the ground. Before she could run, a shadow loomed behind her. She turned and there was Lorenzo, his face cold and expressionless. "You shouldn't have done that," he said softly, his voice devoid of emotion. The next morning, Rossi's Fine Meats was closed. A handwritten sign on the door read, "Closed for inventory." Lena's car was found abandoned 2 blocks away, but there was no sign of her. Her disappearance barely made the news. In the weeks that followed, business at Rossi's seemed to boom. The sandwiches were better than ever, customers said. So tender, so flavorful. Lorenzo smiled as he served his customers, his sharp eyes glinting as he watched them take their first bite. But some nights, if you walked past the deli after dark, you might hear faint whispers coming from the alley. A girl's voice, trembling and faint. "Help me, please." The smell from the shop lingers longer these days, heavier, thicker. And every so often, someone notices a new initial on the packages in the freezer, initials no one can quite account for. And still, people keep coming back, because once you've had a taste of Rossi's, you can't seem to stay away.